say that Bobbie Aug is multi-talented is an understatement. As one of the foremost authorities on the care and appraisal of vintage and newly made quilts, Bobbie is in high demand as a teacher, judge, lecturer, historian, and consultant. Bobbie, one question we're always getting from quilters is, how do I take care of my grandmother's quilt? Do you have any tips for us? What's the best way?
Well, Jeanna, we want to make sure that we treat textiles with dignity and respect. We want to preserve them for future generations to come. So one of the main things and the easiest things to do is to make sure when you handle a textile that your hands are clean, or that you use white gloves that are also clean. And when you're going to study the quilt or examine it or look at it or just appreciate it, it's not a good idea to lay anything on top of it or lean on the textile, but better to put your hands underneath when you're looking at different areas. And I think that's probably the best thing that you can do.
So when it comes to the value of quilts, condition is very important then.
Oh, yes. Actually, in the real estate business, you know how it's location, location, location?
Sure.
Well, in the antique quilt business, it's condition, condition, condition.
Are there any resources for finding out some information on this?
Oh, there's many publications that are available for how to care for textiles.
Well, what's the best way to fold and store our quilts?
Well, textiles are always happiest when they're resting flat. That way there's no stress on any of the fibers. But that isn't always practical, especially for large quilts. So what we need to do is avoid fold lines, and that would cause the fibers to break. You know, Jeanna, like if you want to share a piece of paper with a friend and you don't have a pair of scissors, you know how you'll fold it back and forth a lot of different times and then how it will just tear very easily? Well, the same thing will happen to textiles. So we want to avoid that happening. When we're going to fold our quilt, we'll place a piece of acid-free tissue paper scrunched in the fold to give it padding. But before we actually fold the quilt, we want to protect it from itself in the other areas. That way there isn't any abrasion, especially for areas that have dimension, like embroidery on crazy quilts or applique or heavily trapuntoed and quilted areas. So to do that, we can put a piece of acid-free tissue paper or several, no matter how many it takes, on one side of the quilt. Sometimes in older textiles we have dyes that are not stable and they tend to migrate, go to other areas. This way, when the quilt is folded, it's protected from itself. So we don't get those running dyes over on this part. Then if we need to fold it again, we take another piece of scrunched acid-free paper. In this case, we'll fold it in half. That should be plenty. Placing it where we'd like to fold it, and then doing the same thing to protect the quilt from itself or any soil that might be on the back side. Oh, I think we'll turn it this way, and that'll fit. And then again, taking the quilt and folding it in half. And see how rounded the areas are here?
Oh, that looks
won't
perfect.
get that breakage.
Those are some really great ideas for those of us who love old quilts. Thanks, Bobbie.
You're welcome.
Try this tip from Bobbie Aug.
Like antique quilts, vintage clothing needs special care too. Patting this infant's cap, sleeves, and putting acid-free paper between the garment helps preserve it for generations to come.